Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We're having a look at the FFA P-16, which is on the Dance of Dragons update dev server. And this vehicle is a pre-order premium that is coming in for the German tech tree. It is of Swiss nature and does have a lot of interesting factors to it. But if you want to pre-order it, make sure to find it on the Gaijin store. It's available for PC now, and I think it'll be available for console nearer the release of the update. Also, if you want to use or get a discount on it, make sure to use my partner link, which is in the description of the video. So, the FFA P-16, you'll find it here in the tech tree at rank 6, meaning that it'll be useful for grinding out everything that isn't these rank 8 vehicles, so the vast majority of the tech tree basically. And it has access to some pretty interesting ordnance and also some flight characteristics. This vehicle is so odd in terms of how it's set up, and very much is an indigenous Swiss design. It definitely takes some ideas from other vehicles, but you can definitely tell it is from good old Switzerland. So the vehicle itself has access to the Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire AS A7, and that gives it quite a lot of thrust, and this means that it can go pretty quick. I would actually liken its performance to an F-84, which is a bit more boosted. So you know how the F-84F has a pretty rough performance, but the F-84G has a very good performance for its BR. That's what this feels like, but obviously increased since it's a bit of a higher BR. One of the cool things about this vehicle is it has these guns, the 30mm Hispano HS825s. These are the same guns that are on the Sparviero and also the Ariete for Italy. If you haven't played those vehicles, there is a reason the Sparviero kept going up in BR, and it's because of how powerful these guns are and also how good they were at maneuvering. So these guns are very high fire rate, very high velocity, incredibly accurate 30mm, very good for annihilating guns. And I actually meant Sagittario, sorry. Here, I'll show you the two vehicles. The Sparviero is the ship. But yeah, the Sagittario 2, this one has the HS825s if you want to have a look at it in the tech tree, and also the Ariete has them too, so you can kind of look at the stats before the P-16 gets added to the game. It has 240 rounds for them, so 120 each, and will be able to do a lot of damage. It does have a radar here, but this is just a radar rangefinder, so this is only useful in simulator. It's not useful in really anything else, so it's not something to really worry about. The pilot only has access to CCRP as well for the bombs. So even though this has a lot of secondary ordnance that you will be using in this vehicle, it doesn't have access to anything to really help it get to the target. So you're going to have to use a lot of the Mark 1 eyeball for this type of vehicle, and that is going to hurt it quite a lot. It does have a bit of armor, the bulletproof glass, so head-ons will be very good with this machine, especially since the elevator is quite strong, and also it has those 30mm which are on it. By the way, this is a vehicle which was made by a community member, by Nova, who is the same person who has made a bunch of different vehicles in the game already, including some for the German tech tree. He made the Arado 196, which is right here, and I'm pretty sure he also made the TAR 154 and stuff like the HE219, and has been working on stuff like a Bronco and even some Indian aircraft, which is pretty cool. So the P-16 here is just another one that he's added. The cockpit is also modeled by a community member too. If you didn't know, you can actually make models for War Thunder and get paid for doing it by Gaijin, part of the, you know, the kind of community partnership program stuff. So if you're interested in that, or if you are a modeler, make sure to look into that, because everybody likes making a bit of money, and also you can leave your stamp on the game, which is cool. So looking at the modifications, this is obviously the important part. Since it's a premium, you get all of this stuff for free, so you don't have to worry about grinding it out. But what is kind of cool is the fact that with its secondary ordnance, you can kind of go one or two ways with it. So if you want to be an air-to-air fighter, it does get access to two AIM-9Bs and also the 30mm. So this is kind of similar to what you'll find in the Hunter for the Benelux tech tree, or even, you know, some of them for the other nations, like the J34, for example, which is the Hunter for the Swedish, whereas with the British ones, you obviously have the F6, which is in a bit of a weird place, and also the F1. But you can bring 2 of the FLZs. These are basically AIM-9Bs, and then the 30mm in tow, so you can go full-on air-to-air dominance if you feel like. It does have the speed for it, it does have the mobility for it, but also understand 9.3 is a pretty crazy BR, and if you're flying against a lot of 9.3s, 9.7s, and right now 10.0s with stuff like the FAU-2, you're going to get massacred in this thing, so just don't even bother, right? Until those BR changes come in, this type of vehicle will not be able to survive. It does have some good secondary ordnance, though, and this is where I think its main role will come in, which is as a CAS aircraft for ground. At 9.0, you do have some pretty good ordnance here, especially if you know how to use CCRP pretty effectively. You also have a lot of rockets if you want to bring them along. So you have the T-80P3s, which have good penetration and pretty decent TNT equivalent. You also have the HE ones, which have a decent amount of overpressure damage, basically, and then also the SNEBs, which you can hold internally. So this vehicle can carry quite a lot of different ordnance options if you want to. I feel like, at least for me, you know, the fact that you can bring so many different ones along will help it out in terms of, you know, what the vehicle will be able to do. So you can see here, like, you can bring along a bunch of rockets and then also bring along the air-to-airs if you want. So you can ground pound with the rockets, or you can ground pound with other stuff. And then even, you know, bring along bombs if you want to too, along with it, meaning that you can, you know, bring basically a bit of everything, which is awesome. I would definitely say that the rockets are probably going to be the way to go, though. Obviously, it has firebombs and stuff like that, which are all great, but for me, I much prefer like using the rockets on ground targets, but that's just because I'm a bit more comfortable with them. Since this thing doesn't have CCIP for the rockets, doesn't have, you know, anything like that for the rockets, it might be a little bit harder to use these compared to more conventional stuff, which, you know, you might be used to. So the other part of the kind of reason to pick this thing up is it's one of the first steps that the Swiss is taking in War Thunder. You obviously have the Hunter F-58, which is the squadron vehicle for Switzerland, but I'm sure there's going to be more vehicles in the tech tree of Germany for Switzerland, which will be really nice. And at 9.0, what you can do is you can run it with the 9.3 lineup, which is incredibly powerful for Germany, and even the 9.0 stuff with stuff like the Leopard A1A1, the TAM2IP if you already have that, and it will be a good cast threat. You just have to watch out for the IR guided missile AAs, and also some of the guided ones which are about. So when I see this vehicle, the main thing that kind of turns up, at least in my head, is a vehicle which is going to be fast. It's going to be, you know, decently maneuverable for its size, but also a threat in both areas. When I see this vehicle and I have to deal with this vehicle, I don't know if it's going to come at me as an air-to-air vehicle, kind of like something like the Seahawk, or if it's going to be something which is more designed to hit at, you know, certain vehicles like the, you know, like the Hunter and things like that, if people are going to play it like that. It doesn't have any countermeasures, so that obviously is a mark against it, but most of the time you don't face stuff that you really need countermeasures against in air. Unfortunately, the cockpit also isn't in yet, so once it is in, I'll make sure to have a look at it for you. And then also you can see the guns here in the front. So it's definitely missing some things that would make it a bit easier to use. Obviously, we talked about, you know, the fact that it would be really nice if it had access to, you know, CCIP and CCRP, but you'll get used to using them without CCRP. It's not something that you really need a lot of the time. And the guns themselves are the ones which are really going to be quite nice in order to use going forward. I think the thing that's going to catch a lot of people out when it comes to this vehicle is the speed that it has, and also the fact that since it's pretty much set up like an F-84, once you get it to lower speeds, that elevator does kick in pretty aggressively, and also with like the combat flaps and all of that, you can have a pretty good time with it. The guns themselves have a really high velocity, so you're going to have to get used to that, but you know, you can do it. And you can see here, like what that velocity looks like in terms of the the general fire rate of it, and also just how fast they are going out of the place. And the maneuverability of like the tail section is a lot better than many other aircraft that you'll find around. Like you can see here the rudder and also the elevator pushing itself around. It does feel pretty nice even with the roll rate. So yeah, I think generally this is a nice vehicle. I don't think I would pick it up myself personally because the G91R4 is there, and that one has, you know, the AGMs, which are very useful, and also has access to the AIM-9Bs. So this one is just another option which you could take, but I feel like there are slightly better options out there. But if you're a person who is interested in Swiss aircraft, if you're a person who's interested in what's going to come forward for Switzerland, like maybe you can kind of get into it. The other thing to also mention is there are technically two versions of this vehicle. So there's this one, and then there's one with a slightly different engine. So maybe in the future, when it comes to this vehicle, there might be another one which is actually in the tech tree, so that would be quite nice to see too. As always though, hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.
I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.